Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Welcome to the final video of Eyeshadow Palette Week. Today we are going to be talking about my all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is going to be the final video in Eyeshadow Palette Week. I did daily videos all week long and I had a lot of fun filming them for you. And I think you had fun watching them, judging by the comments. So today we are going to be tackling my all-time favorite palettes. I like to do this once a year, every year when I do Eyeshadow Palette Week. And this time I just made it very neutral heavy. Some of these have been on the list for a long time. Others are some newer to me palettes. Some of them have been discontinued. Some of them are still around. Let's just get to it. Before we get into the video though, it may be good to know who I am and what I like doing on this channel. My name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and this greatly influences how I feel about makeup. I have been reviewing makeup for more than a decade. I love trying out eyeshadow palettes as a Sézane and getting the use out of my makeup. So if that's something you're interested in, I hope you'd like to consider subscribing. Let's talk all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. So I do this video once a year, as I already mentioned. And every year I sort of look at the list I did the year before and I'm like, is there anything still on the list that I would like to repeat? Has it changed a lot? And I feel there is quite a big change. There were a lot of neutral palettes that were released in recent years and that I have tried in the past year, and I feel that a lot of those are just now my new favorites, you could say. However, they definitely follow a theme. If you've watched these videos that I've done in the past, I think you can see the theme and you can see the pattern. I have, however, in the past also made this video have it include all of my favorite colorful palettes and all of my favorite this and that palettes. And right now I was just like, you know what? I just want to chat about well, there's 20 palettes here today. I thought I was going to do a top 10, but I can't stick to just 10. There are too many that I would like to feature, like the 20 palettes that I really feel are the best of the best, the all-time favorites, and some of these have been with me for a very, very long time. So let's just get to it. So I want to start with the 5 palettes that have been on this list for sometimes the longest time, and many of these are discontinued as well. There's only one palette in this first roundup of 5 palettes that is even still available. But one of my favorite palettes that I tried in 2023 was this guy here, and this is the Catrice 5 in a Box in Diamond Lavender look. Catrice did a complete overhaul of this palette series that they were doing. They now call it Wow in a Box, but I really like the original roundup that they did. I still have all of the ones that I've tried, and I tried the entire line, but they're not necessarily something I need to keep around in my makeup collection. But you'll see a theme here with these kind of cooler tones, with the softer purples and then these gray tones. It was just really, really perfect for me. When I first tested this out, I was able to do 5 different looks with this really, really easily, and that's why I think this is just a perfect palette for me. It's light, it's cool toned, it's very easy using makeup for me, and I wish they had kept this around for a bit longer, because I think they only kept it around for 1 or 2 cycles. It was discontinued really quickly. But yeah, this is a really lovely one, and I did put it into giveaways, and I did a lot of things with this palette, and I just think it's a lovely one. One that is also very much discontinued, and that has been on the list ever since I tried it, is this guy, and this is the Too Faced White Chocolate Bar. I go back to this every winter because it is my favorite palette for the winter time. It is light, it has some pastel shades, so it's got a little bit of color, and it's got the peaches here, but then it also has a lot of cooler tone neutrals and one of my favorite shimmers of all time. So this palette is one that, even though it's been around in my makeup collection for a long time, I have never needed to reorganize this. A lot of the older palettes that I have in my makeup collection, as you'll see in a bit, have been reorganized. And there were usually only a couple of shades that I really truly loved. And I thought, why not just put it together into, put all of those shades together in one single palette, and it works out really well for me that way. This is one of the very few, older Too Faced palettes that I didn't feel the need to reorganize. this is just great. So I go back to it every year, and that's why it needs to get a mention again. Another sort of like honorable mention, because it's discontinued, but it is one of my favorite palettes by Meld, is the Mary Jane. This was discontinued, it is no longer available, and this is a little bit of a flaky mess, but I don't mind it. I find these shimmers pretty easy to work with, and it's a great cool tone color story that has smoky shades, but you can still keep it very neutral and everyday if you'd like. And I love that these have a green undertone. That's my favorite thing about the palette. But for instance, these browns aren't that deep that I cannot make them work. With a lot of palettes, if they're neutrals, I always find that a lot of the crease shades are just a touch too dark for me. And in here, I just get everything I need to do the full look. And I really enjoy the formula in here. I know not everybody liked this. I know it wasn't like everyone's favorite palette, but for me, it's been a favorite ever since I tried it, and I still really enjoy mine. The only palette from this section of the video that is still around, but I don't think a lot of people still talk about it, because I think if you've been around ever since this palette was released, you've probably owned this at some point. So I don't think it's like top of mind for most people in the online makeup world, because it's just so focused on new, but I think that still till this day, the Tartelette In Bloom is a solid pick if you're looking for a good neutral everyday palette that's going to give you warm tones, cool tones, and neutral tones, and it can just do everything. Especially if you're a beginner in makeup. I've said this many times before, and this is one where I was like, yeah, I still need to feature it, because even though I don't use this anymore every single day, because I have other palettes that I just, if I think I want to go for a neutral look, I would reach for over this. It's such a good staple in my makeup collection. It's a very reliable palette. And just for that reason alone, I wanted to feature it again. So here you have your warm tones. These are the more neutral tones. And here we have those cooler tones. You only get 3 shimmers, which is another reason why I would want some more shimmers in here. And if you buy it nowadays, you will actually have the opportunity to take the shades out, because then it's magnetic. Mine is so old that it doesn't have that feature. So yeah, the Tartelette palettes from Tarte, I think, is like one of the best formulas on the market to begin with. And this is the color story that I go back to time and time again. The next palette I'm about to show you doesn't exist the way I have it organized, and the actual palette has also been decluttered that this is based on, and it's my Urban Decay Naked 2/3. So I have a bunch of Urban Decay eyeshadow palettes. That was the brand I was collecting for a very long time. So I have a little box where I keep them all safely in its little space. And this is the only one that's still in my active makeup collection. And for that fact alone, it needs to go in here. And I completely gave this a new lease of life when I took apart my Naked 2 and Naked 3 and put the shades into the Naked 2 packaging that I have. I do have backups of the original color story, so I do still have the original palettes, because I purchased the Urban Decay Naked 2 after it had just been discontinued, so I was able to snatch that up. And I bought the Naked 3 when it went on sale on Beauty Bay, like right before I was like really not that interested anymore in it. But this is what happens if you combine the two. And I think that in terms of like a cool tone color story, this is everything I want. And these shades, you know, they are super old, but it's held up so well, and it's like, it's not gone moldy, it's not gone weird, even though I reorganized them and re-glued them into this palette. It just works every time. Last year, I had this in my like everyday makeup drawer for like, if I just need a shade, I can reach for it, and I wasn't really doing it. But as I was like using it, now that it's reorganized, I have just confirmed for myself that this just has all of the cool tone shades. And if you were to ask me what is your favorite cool tone color story, if you were ever, you know, going to collab with a brand and they gave you that opportunity, this is what it would look like. You would get a matte taupe, a matte mauve, something shimmery to go with it, a silver, some like murkier shades, something to deepen it up with a liner, and some shimmering inner corner highlight things. So in terms of like color story, I really enjoy this one. Of course, it doesn't exist, so I do apologize for that. But this is the only reorganized eyeshadow palette that's in here. So the only one that I sort of make an exception to, because it's just much more perfect. The other 15 palettes I have here for you, most of those are still available. You can still buy them. There's a couple that were discontinued. However, you can very easily find similar-ish things within the same brand, I find. So even though the exact palette I'm showing you today may no longer be available, I think you can definitely find something within that spirit. This is kind of going to bridge the gap, I think, between like the very old favorites and this like newer section, you could say. And here we have the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz. And this has been on the list several times as well. This is just not as old in my makeup collection as the Too Faced White Chocolate Bar or the Urban Decay Naked 2, because those two have been around for, like the Naked 2, I think I've had for more than a decade. It's wild, but yeah, it's held up really well, as I mentioned. But this I still love. It does have some warmth, but I really enjoy this section over here the most. You do get some pinks and purples, and I do really enjoy this section here too. So yeah, you get some really lovely shades. I tend to skip the warm tones though when I use this. But again, a palette I like to go back to every year, especially in the winter season, because I feel it works the best for me then. I like to reach for different color stories depending on what season is. I don't stick to it very strictly, but if I think of like, ooh, I want to select an older eyeshadow palette and it's like the dead of winter, I'll go for this in the Too Faced White Chocolate Bar. Speaking of seasons, this was a fall release from Catrice and they brought it back last year. I'm not sure if this is still available. It seems to be sort of making its way around the globe very slowly, it seems. But the minute I tried this was my instant favorite palette of 2022. It was a limited edition, so it's no longer available. But it's not as if Catrice doesn't do any other good eyeshadow, and I just, I keep this around in my collection, not only because I want to have that reminder of like this very affordable makeup that can feel like high-end, that it was only 15 euros, because this palette retailed for 15 euros and it has the same kind of quality as the Huda Beauty that I just showed you. Like, it's just a really amazing eyeshadow, and I love the color story of this. It has your like mauve tones, and then it has some more neutrals here. It has some warmth, but like this is the row that I kind of ignore a little bit. So especially if you ignore the two oranges here, it's really not that warm toned, and I've put this into giveaway several times because I love it so much, and I wanted to share the love also with people who cannot buy this product. So yes, I did give away this palette to quite a few people in the meantime. So yeah, I hope this palette is going to be making its way to more countries. I really hope they do that. Catrice can be a bit slow. As I mentioned, we got this at the end of 2022 over here, and it was released in the south of Europe in 2023, like a year later. And that's how I was able to purchase it. It was available through Amazon for me, and that's how I was able to purchase it for my giveaways. So yeah, this is just lovely quality. I went back to it again in the fall season to like retest the theory. Is this still a favorite? And I reconfirmed for myself that this just has such amazing quality and such a great color story for me personally, especially for the fall time, because it has some richer colors in here that I really enjoy as well. So you can really like glam it up. Like for a one-stop shop everyday palette, it has everything you need to take you from the daytime to the nighttime, and it can just really see you through, which is why I've always enjoyed this one. Another palette I also truly love is the Lisa Eldridge Vega palette. I tried this and I knew I wanted to try some more. There currently still is another Lisa Eldridge eyeshadow palettes on my wish list, but this is the Cool Tone one, and this is the first one I ever tried from the brand, and I think it's really lovely. You get those like blues, and then you have like your taupey like neutral things. You get a topper. It's just a really stunning palette, and you can do a lot with just this one color story, which is why I love it. In a similar vein to the Lisa Eldridge is the Victoria Beckham. This is in the shade Tuxedo. It's their smoky eye brick, and this is one that was sent to me in PR. I'm going to be very transparent, but because I love this so much, I also got the blue one in Royal, which I didn't love as much as I did this one. This one I felt was something special. Like, really good formula, really nice blendability. You can see which is my favorite shade, I guess. And it's essentially like a smoky eye palette, and this paired with one of the lid lusters that the brand does is just amazing. So yeah, I really enjoyed the formula of this, and I think it's a really lovely palette, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend any of the others in the line. A fairly recent discovery for me are K-beauty brands. I have been trying them a lot in the past couple of years, and in 2023 my aim was to try some more K-beauty eyeshadow, because I had found that there were definitely some things within the K-beauty realm that I enjoyed, so I made it my mission in 2023 to try a couple more to really see like, okay, what formula do I like? And something that seems to be very popular are the Romand Better Than palettes. And I have to agree, this was my favorite out of all of the K-beauty eyeshadow palettes I tried last year. This is Dreamy Lilac Garden. And I like this so much that I now have 4 of these. No, 5. I just bought a new one. So yeah, this is a formula I just really enjoy. You get a little bit of a gradient. It doesn't go super deep, but this is deep enough for me to deepen things up or to use as liner. You get a couple of shimmers here. These are all the shimmering shades, so light enough to make it work and to brighten things up. With K-beauty, you have to be aware that the vibe we're going for is washes of color. It's not like some of the other brands that are still coming up where it's like boom, pigment, in your face, and you need to blend for days. This is like, woof. That's what you're getting with the K-beauty brand. So yeah, just be aware of that if you're looking into K-beauty and you're interested in it. For my fair skin, I feel it works really well. If you have a preference for more pigmentation, just don't try K-beauty. Another favorite that has been on the list for a very long time, and quite possibly one of my favorite all-time neutral palettes for sure, is this guy, the Cashmere from Viseart. Viseart is another brand that has one of my most favorite eyeshadow formulas. And what I like so much about this palette is a little bit like what I told you about the Tartelette in Bloom, is that it has a little bit of everything. So you get your like rosy tones in here, you get something with warmth, you get cooler tones, you have your neutral tones. It just has a really good blend. And very often when brands put warm tones, cool tones, and neutrals all in one palette, it can sometimes have a very weird clash and they don't really mix and match really well. With this, no issues. What I have loved so much about this palette is that you can go row for row, you can use it as quads, you can use it as like 6 shades here, 6 shades here. No matter which way you go, you'll always have a look. You just pick a matte for the crease, a shimmer for the lid, maybe a darker shade for liner or deepening up the outer V, and you're absolutely going to love this formula, especially if you have more mature lids and you have a lot of creasing. Know that the Viseart formula doesn't have like overly shimmery, glittery things in. It's very sort of sophisticated, I feel. And I feel that with Viseart, you will get the shimmer quality that you want, but without it creasing and falling down your cheeks, which is why I love them. Remember Diamond Lavender look from Catrice? Well, I tried a palette that's actually very similar to it, but much more expensive. This is Dior. This is their Backstage Silver Essentials palette, and this is very, very pretty. This is, like, my eye was first drawn into the gray tones, but it's essentially like 3 grays here, and then purpley pinks and purpley pinks. That's sort of how the palette works. It has a really, really stunning formula, so stunning that currently on my wish list is another one of these. So if you missed out on this one because it was limited edition for Christmas last year, the Smoky Essentials, I think it's called, is one that seems to be a little bit more cool toned. It doesn't have the weird cream shade in that some of these original palettes had, which is why I didn't try the formula before this one. Because a lot of the original color stories, because I think they did one called Cool Neutrals, and it had like one of those cream shades in that you're supposed to use as a base that was super yellow, which to me completely defeated the point of the palette. But the Smoky Essentials looks really interesting to me, and it's definitely on a wish list for the next couple of months to purchase it and then try it out, because I love this one so much. This color story really came together. As I mentioned, I really enjoyed the formula. It's soft, it's satiny. Again, for people with more mature lids and you haven't tried the Backstage formula from Dior yet, definitely give it a whirl because they do some really stunning things. Nothing is overly shimmery. In fact, nothing is overly matte in this either, especially in this palette in particular. You get mainly satins. And there's a couple of things that have a little bit more of a metallic sheen like here, but most of this palette, say for like this purple, it's got a satin sheen, which I know there's just a lot of people who feel adverse to using satins and shimmers in the crease, but in the 2000s, we did nothing but. And since the 2000s are very much coming back trend-wise, I think you can get away with it. I think we're going to be rediscovering using satins in places that we normally wouldn't use them, and shimmers. I definitely think that's going to be like a trend this year. So the Dior Silver Essentials, I really, really enjoy. Now, I mentioned that there wasn't going to be a lot of color in this, but there is one colorful palette that I tried in 2023 that really stood out. This is one of my favorite palettes of the year. And again, this brand, this formula is one of my favorites. It's Fantasy Cosmetica Rogue. If you do like pigmentation, check out Fantasy Cosmetica. Also, if you like special shimmers, check out Fantasy Cosmetica. Someone asked me in a comment the other day on one of my eyeshadow palette week videos, what is your favorite Fantasy Cosmetica palette of the ones you do have? And it's this one. This is my kind of color story, blue, greens, and purples. Yes, I did an entire video dedicated to that kind of color story, of course, this week as well. And I just wanted to pop my favorite in here. Like, if I go for color, I go for things like this, a little bit on the grungy side, but still like colorful enough for it to show up, you could say. You have your murky mattes, something brighter to make it work, and 4 gorgeous shifty shimmers that are really going to throw it together. So Fantasy Cosmetica, I had to give them a shout out, and this is my favorite palette by them, so that's why I'm featuring here today. Another brand I really enjoy is Pat McGrath, and I actually, like, I'm always a little bit on the fence because I really, really love the Subliminal one, the no Mothership 1 Subliminal. I always mess up the name. And that palette has been like one of my favorite palettes of all time. But then more recently, they did the Moonlit Seduction. And I have mentioned when I decluttered my eyeshadow palette collection for you in March that I kept this over Divine Rose 1. Because Divine Rose 1 was very peach leaning. It was pretty warm, heavy, like just pretty warm pooling on my skin tone. And I felt that this gave me what I had hoped the Divine Rose would give me. So yeah, Moonlit Seduction, again, you have these like rosy tones. You do get a gold, but this is a really nice cool tone brown. And of course, all of these shimmers, like this more taupe leaning thing, so nice. You have this really pretty shifting shade here as well. And all of these shimmers are just really, really lovely. I still love my Subliminal one too. Like the Subliminal is still really, really gorgeous too. But I also think it's time sometimes to switch things up. And I still just really enjoy the Pat McGrath formula. I do really think they do something really special. Just color story wise, we don't really get that much innovation, which out of all of like the rosy toned palettes that the brand does, this would be my pick. And then for the longest time, I couldn't think of like the number 15 item on this list. We're not there yet, of course, but I was like, oh yeah, of course, I really enjoyed these. And I have all 6 of these little quads from Kaleidos. I'm just holding up the 2 that came out last and that I tried last. We have the Black Jasmine, the Cold Brew, Glowing Iris, and I always forget the other name of this, the 4th one we got. These are Venus Trap and Twilight Rush, and these are my favorites, especially this neutrally tone. Look at this. It's like taupe, grayish leaning taupes with like a lavender, like the softest lavender you're going to find in a stunning shimmer. I love the formula of these as well. I've said this in the past, and I'm going to say it again. I feel like Kaleidos does Asian beauty, but for the Western market. They are definitely sort of tapping into Asian beauty trends, and they're making it available over here. That's how I feel. And then Twilight Rush is the more purpley one of the 2. And I really like these. And if you have, like me, I have all 6 of them. They mix and match so well. So if you feel like one is a little bit limiting, you can use the other one. I love the formula, and I've loved and owned many Kaleidos palettes, and I've loved them for years. I still have all of my older ones as well, the Futurism ones. I have the Club Nebula. So yeah, Kaleidos also needed to get a shout out here. And I think that these ones, like when they released these, especially the Venus Trap one, I was like, ooh, this is really going to complete the set. And I really enjoy the packaging of this. It's only 4 shades. It feels luxurious. It feels heavy. And I think this is a stunning collection. This next palette is also no longer available, but the brand that I'm going to be showing you does have a palette that's quite similar, still on their website. It's just a little bit bigger. What am I talking about? Glam Shop. And Glam Shop eyeshadow palettes are always limited edition. So it's like a grab it while you can kind of thing, because if it sells out, and it's going to be gone forever. But it's the Simna Mocha. I've loved the Coco Sanka for years, but when they released this last year, like these lighter tones, like can you see the theme here of what I'm currently really into? This is just the thing I love the best. And does that mean I'm never going to use Coco Sanka again? Of course not. I still love that palette to pieces. I love my cashmere. There are so many good color stories that this brand has come out with. Recently though, ever since I purchased from them last year, I haven't really seen them do anything that I feel I need to place an order for, you could say. So I'm hoping they're going to do some more things. But here again, you have your taupe shimmers. You have some beautiful mattes. You get some things that shift as well. This pink in the middle has a blue shift. Really, really stunning. And just a good neutral palette that is great for fair skin. And I love it. I think they did a holiday collection, like a summer vacation collection last summer, and there is a cool tone palette that has similar shades in. So you could get that to try the brand if you want to give it a whirl. And then this is by no means like a top 3, but it kind of is, because another brand I really enjoy formula-wise is Natasha Denona, and I've featured plenty of Natasha Denona palettes in the past on this list as well. The glam, the retro, they've all been here. But since doing those videos, I've reorganized all of my Natasha Denona color stories, which I now enjoy just so much more. But then, of course, in the fall season, we got the I Need a Nude. And the I Need a Nude, I tried it and I was like, yes, this is what I want from a neutral tone palette. Thank you very much, Natasha Denona. And this is the first Natasha Denona palette that I don't feel, for me, needs to be reorganized for it to be workable as a color story. And here's what that color story then looks like. It looks a lot more peachy toned in the pan, I find, than it does when it goes onto my skin. This is why I always say I have a cool to neutral. Maybe I should say neutral to cool, because I feel I have mainly a neutral undertone. I can get away with both cool tones and neutrals and warm tones. Like I can use the whole spectrum. And what I find with this, if I use like a peach like this, it's going to pull more pink on me. And I do prefer cooler tones on myself, especially eyeshadow wise. I just feel it works better with all of my features, you could say. But this has just everything I want. It's deep enough, it's light enough, it has the crease shades I want, it has some fun shimmers, it's got some sparkly toppers, it just has everything I want, and it's got plenty of taupes in, and then you have those warmer tones to really sort of balance it out. And that's why I really enjoy this color story for sure. The I Need a Nude was just perfection the minute I tried it earlier in the year. And something that was a complete surprise to me when I tried it, because I had never tried eyeshadow from this brand, is the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes. So many people were raving about it when it's released the first time round. I missed out on it, and then I grabbed it ASAP when it came back over the fall season, which meant I did place an order for this on the Makeup by Mario website, and I had it shipped to me from the US. And now I wish I had waited until it had been released in Europe, but it just didn't, and I didn't know whether that was going to happen or whether, I was going to be able to purchase it in any other way. So I was like, right, I'm going to budget for it and I'm going to buy it. And in terms of like this and having I Need a Nude, if you're not a makeup reviewer, I don't think you need both. I'm really happy with mine. It's not as cool toned in some of the deeper shades, I find, as the Natasha Denona is. This is a little bit more red leaning, for instance, but I feel that undertone wise, this is perhaps a little bit better if you are slightly warmer toned. It's just not as cool toned, and the cool tones you do get pull quite grayish brown, you could say. And in here, you get so many really beautiful shimmers. Like, these 4 shimmers are just... There's just... I don't know what they put in this formula, and that's what I also said in my review. When I first tried this, I was like, yes, this is true innovation in an eyeshadow palette. This is different from anything I've ever tried. At least that's how it feels. It performs well with a brush. It performs well with a finger. And you can just do so much with this little guy. And I feel so beautiful. And I have the honor to do my neighbor's makeup for her wedding day in May. And we will be using this shimmer in this palette and a little bit of this peach to set up her look, because she also loves this palette. She doesn't own it, and she was like, oh, you have the Makeup by Mario. I was like, yes, I do have it. So I knew I had to put it into her look somehow, and it just goes to show, you know, Makeup by Mario as a makeup artist brand. So I do think that that's definitely also how it was created, and now that I get to dabble a little bit in makeup artistry myself, I get to use it that way too. Finally, the final 2 palettes, so this is going to round out my top 20 here, are both by the same brand, and I just can't choose. The Kaleidos one, I sort of, because they're very small palettes, I counted as one, but these are separate entries in this top 20 list. It's the Gloss Gods, New Neutrals, and First Gal on Jupiter. I kind of feel like, you know, the lone person in the desert calling out, because these palettes I don't hear anybody talking about. It's like, I've seen creators use them and then they never go back to them. And it's just, when I discovered this brand, I was sold, which is why earlier in the week I ranked all of the palettes I have. And even though I love my Smoke and Mirrors a little bit more than I do the New Neutrals if I have to rank all of them, that one is no longer available. So I was like, I do want to make sure there's plenty in this video that it's potentially things you can still buy, or where it's easier to get alternatives if you'd like to. And the New Neutrals, I think, is just such a great neutral option for sure. Again, if something like Makeup by Mario or Natasha Denona is too expensive for you, Gloss Gods is around 40 euros. So it's a little easier price point wise. And they just do some really pretty shifty things. Like this one, like, it looks like a brown and then it has the gold, but I'm not sure. Here in the mirror you can see that it has green. It's a multi-chrome. So it's a neutral palette, but it also has the multi-chromes in. And I feel that very often we get brands who, you know, when they do multi-chromes, they always have to be colorful. And this is a neutral palette, but it still has multi-chromes in, which I appreciate. This entire row is a little bit more neutral, more cool toned. This is more warm toned. This is more neutral. You can mix and match them. It's really, really nice. You get plenty of deepening up shades here as well. I mean, there's just a lot going on. And you get textures. And someone on my ranking the other day said, well, to me, they just look like something ColourPop would do. Trust me, if you've ever tried this brand and you've also tried ColourPop, this is light years better than what ColourPop has to offer. And yes, it's cheaper cardboard packaging, but that's how they're able to put like slightly different textures in the palette, I feel. And you see this a lot with indie brands, actually. Like, most indie brands will have cardboard packaging because it's just cheaper. And that way they can really focus on, you know, creating different color stories and doing all that. So New Neutrals Remix from Gloss Gods is still a favorite for sure. And finally, yes, the First Gal on Jupiter. Of course I had to feature it here. This came out at the end of 2023. I tried it at the start of this year and I love it. It's the more cool-toned version of the New Neutrals Remixed, essentially. There was a mistake made by the manufacturer and they put the shades in a different order than they were supposed to go. So now we just have mattes and everything else is shimmer. I prefer shimmers over mattes. I've said this many times before, and this palette just delivers. We get something that has, again, a little bit of a shift. We get a holochrome, so we have some different textures in here. These two shades are lovely. This has, like, it's such a different, it's like a cooler tone bronze, but it still has a bit of red in. I can't explain it, but it pulls cool toned. We get something that's a little bit more like murky, mustardy leaning as well, so that you can make this a little bit more warm toned if you'd like. But you also get something that's a little bit more taupe, and if you're thinking, but that's light, blend it together with the dark shade. You can very easily customize your own crease shade here. Because those undertones go together really, really well. So yeah, this just has everything. You get some gorgeous gray shimmers. I love this. I love this. I love that. Yeah, this is just perfection in a palette. And the minute I saw them announcing this on Instagram, I set an alarm so I could purchase this. And again, something I put in the giveaway when I hit 10,000 subscribers because I loved it just so much. And I knew I loved the brand because I had tried some other palettes by them before I ever purchased this. And then I tried this out and it completely lives up to my expectations that the brand has set so far, and I really enjoy this one for sure. Those were all of the eyeshadow palettes that I wanted to feature in today's video. Thank you so very much for joining me here today. These are my all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. Let me know in a comment down below what yours are. I feel like with some of these, I've like kept the brand in, but I've just slightly changed the color story at the minute. So yeah, is that then an all-time favorite? That can be debatable perhaps, but these are all palettes that I'm currently really, really enjoying, and going through my entire makeup collection and saying like, okay, what are my top 20 favorites? This would be them. So I hope you really enjoyed watching this video today. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make several videos every single week, so like stay tuned for more, and then I hope to see you in my next one. Bye bye.